Hello, thanks for joining us, for those live and for those watching on YouTube. We're going to be talking to Damian Todd about his first book in the Dits series, which is The Good, the Bad and The Unrepeatable. Before I hand over to Damian to introduce himself, a quick introduction to Barnform Publishing. We've been going for just over 2 years now. We like to think we're an independent publisher. We mainly publish kind of military genre, whether that be non-fiction or fiction, veteran stories, and so on and so forth. But we do open up to other fields as well. So if you're an aspiring writer, if you want to follow in Damien's footsteps, then give us a shout on our social media or at submissions at barnformpublishing.co.uk. So without further ado, Damien, or Obi as you're known to many, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I think I know everyone, but again, as people join, I'll probably miss that. Damian Obi. Um, if you have read the first bit in the book, you'll know exactly why I'm called Obi, as opposed to Damien or Toddy. I've been called a lot worse over the years, as you can probably well imagine, because those that do know me have probably called me those names, and you'd be right in doing so. So I'm a veteran of the Royal Marines Commandos. It's for 22 years. And I retired now a long time ago. It feels 15 years next year, and I miss it. Not so much the job. I miss the camaraderie of that, and it's from doing so many wonderful and not so wonderful things within my time, both in the Corps and a little bit before and a little bit afterwards as well. Being able to put those images I have, and I mean having such a strong, powerful visual memory, to put those down onto paper and convey a message of good, bad, and the ugly, really, albeit call it unrepeatable. But there's a misnomer there because I've repeated it because I put it onto paper. So this pretty much in part some of my story, and just excited and incredibly proud actually to get it down and get it out to the world, which sounds really cheesy, but it actually is. So there we go. So yeah, that's kind of me in a very short speak.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, I think we were saying offline beforehand that, most people will read a book in their lifetime of some variety, but not many people actually, turn their hand to writing one. And in your case, you've got a series of books planned, which, you're going to be kind of feeding through over time. So yeah, congratulations, truly on that. I mean, where did the journey start in terms of, looking to write this book and getting into writing?
Um, to be honest, there was a guy that I worked with, BA Systems Australia, who kind of gave me the idea to do it, and it was really speaking around one of the charity events that was my brainchild. Well, I started it back 2008, and then it came to fruition in 2010, and it was an absolute humdinger of an event, the Gumpathon, where we ran across America, to keep it short. And I remember chatting to him about it, and this would have been, some years later, 2014 or 15. And I was just speaking to him offline. In fact, we were sat on top of an armored vehicle in the middle of the bush in Australia, and we were just talking about it. And he said, "I think you should write this. I'd read this book if you were talking to me about it, the way you can talk." I was like, yeah. I'd written some poetry beforehand, and I thought it'd be like quite nice to write bits about the Gumpathon, because some of it I wasn't particularly comfortable about talking about, because um, it was challenging at times. So I thought, well, I could do that. Oh, I could do this. And when I left BA Systems, I started working at a training establishment, which I'll definitely write about because it was one of the worst places I absolutely ever worked. It was shit house. I can't think of another worst place to say it. But I used to travel in early. I used to go into work early because I needed to miss the traffic. Adelaide wasn't exactly, throbbing with traffic, but it could get hectic. So I get in there early and I think, well, what am I going to do now for an hour before I actually started work? And so I just thought, well, I'll write. So I started writing, and it was as simple as that. And that's kind of why I put this onto pen to paper, as it were. I'd write about 1,000. I tried to write 1,000 words a day, within that hour, give or take. And yeah, and that's how it started. And as I went through list of stories in my head. I then created an Excel spreadsheet with a list, and I've now got a list of about 120 stories and poems, probably like 25 poems out of that list. And then I just started to work through them, and then eventually decided to put them out. Thanks to my wife, she kind of said you should push this out because this is not bad. In fact, she said it was good, so I thought, well, yeah, if you say it's good, then I'll believe in it. And it's yeah, I had reasons not to internally still, but a bit late now. It's out. Yeah, somebody's bought a copy. I've sold one.
Yeah, you've been modest. You've definitely sold quite a few already, and I'm sure with Christmas coming, that will be even more so. I guess because, well, for the most part, the stories you've written about are obviously your recollections of certain events throughout your whole life. Um, did that help in terms of the writing? Obviously you're almost processing it while you're sat there, obviously writing away, as opposed to dreaming up a story as such and making a fiction.
Yeah, I mean, it, is it easy to write? No, sometimes no. I mean, there's a different process to writing a story that I've lived through as opposed to creating a poem. Poems, I generally get something, I go, right, I'll write that down now, and I almost instantaneous because the words will come, and because I'm a rhyming poet. I like poems to write, although then they don't. Not all poems do, and I get that. But that my style is that rhyming. But when you're writing the story, the recollection for me is quite simple, that part, because I remember things in massive detail. Got a really good mate, Spider, who he and I shared the same room and trained together. We catch up quite regularly, and he just can't get his head around. I can remember so much detail. And I go, oh yeah, I remember that. I said, how do you remember this? Like, I don't know. You just do. And so therefore, that that ability to be able to recall that and then just put it down on paper is, I guess, just I'm fortunate to have that.
Mm.
Um, I guess then to put half decent words, get the old Google Translate or the thesaurus out sometimes, but it is, yeah, that part. The first part is, I suppose, um, the easy part is then just obviously time to put it down to paper, amongst other stuff over the past. When did I first start writing? 2017, 2018, 2017. But then kind of put it to bed and went, I'll be all right. I can't bother to put it out there. But now, for the last 8 months, right, let's get after it and refine everything. And that's been a change, from the
Mm.
dits I wrote to the dits that are now, because they're in two parts, sort of thing. So
Mm.
yeah. Hmm.
And so I guess for those not familiar with the term dits, would you like to kind of explain where that comes from? And yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, dits effectively comes back from the old term for ditties, which refers back to um, uh, I don't know what age actually is for stories. That's what it was. Ditties or sometimes songs. They used to sing on board ship the ditties, and again the nomenclature around that has changed over the years. But for me, dits are those stories where you'd sit round. Certainly in the core, we'd be sitting around waiting for a transport. I mean, I've got a PhD in queuing, right? I think most Marines, think most military people could subscribe to saying, yeah, we've queued, we everything, food, stores, everything, and consequentially, um, you just sit around and kill time. If you're not bored, Marines are the worst. I would say bored service people are the worst because you just what should you do now, and it could be I don't know, murder ball, basically, of whatever it is, just a whole these different games. I won't go down to that because we go, oh, you can't play that, you can't talk about that. But lots of different games, and you just sit around and tell stories. Same as if you go out, recall the first thing you'll do when started to set up our annual troop reunions and just talk about old times. Why? Because they're good, bad, and unrepeatable. So, oh, do you remember this time? And they're just good. Even the shit ones, the ones where you were really under the pump and you were in the best situation, in the worst places on the planet, in the worst situations, they become good. And the recollection of those is so easy because the psychology of being in that situation, the trauma, it envelops you and it just takes over, and so it gets that out, and you can relive that, and it's cathartic. Um, so the dits thing Dits are the best thing I think you can come back to, especially when I catch up with my mates from old. It's all we do, spin dits all weekend. Yeah, yeah.
No. So as you've alluded to that there in terms of the tone of the Dits, although in concept these are effectively short stories,
Yeah.
they're very different throughout the book. There's a lot of hilarity in it. We had a great time working on it on our side here, laughing our heads off. And at the other end of the scale, there are obviously a bit more kind of serious ones as well. How did you kind of curate it? How did you choose which ditch you were going to put in this volume versus leaving them for another day type thing?
Um, that's a very good question. I mean, I have now, if I go back to the original point, whatever I just came to my head, I wrote down. Um, is the first part. Why? I genuinely couldn't tell you why I picked a certain bit. I know the first bit that what started off was the cat's got the cream. And that was the first one I ever started. I didn't finish that first, but that's one I started with because I just thought it was a funny story. I mean, it's just like unbelievable, but legitimately true. And when I tell people that, it's fucking hell, it is different. But then I remember what year the guy Rupert, one of the guys who works with you, and saying about he telling his wife about it because told him about that one, and then told him you got to read this one, the penultimate. And I said, yeah, okay, so I beat that. I say I'll see that, and I'll raise that with recycled sex. So I think the clear answer I don't know, but how to choose now in that list that I've got I'm going to go right, okay, for book two. And now I think, well, I've populated that, because you've got stories about Norway and the good parts about Norway, the fun stuff, in the It's No Joke, and then you've got the stuff about Brass Monkeys, which is about leadership and how good or how bad it could be. And even though it might seem that I'm berating somebody, I'm not actually berating somebody. I think very highly of that particular individual, but I was just disappointed that they didn't really give an answer as to the question of why the fuck are we in this position? Because that was, I mean, there's still to date one of the most scared points in my career. Whole, because like, what can you do with this? If you're in a bad situation and you're not giving us an out here. We're looking for you for something, and so I suppose those things, when they come back and I look at the list, oh, I must have put that in. And for the second book, I've already chosen. And in fact, one of the dits for the second book, I'm not going to do no spoilers, is 14,000 words long. It's still to date the most crazy night out I have ever had. I sent it to a mate who was there. He was part of that bit, and he went, "Mate, that's so good." I said, "I'd forgotten about all that stuff." He said, that was fucked." I went, "I know." He went, "Oh," and he's trying to find the other lad that was there. We'd lost contact with the other lad completely, and we're trying to find him so he can also kind of validate that position. And so yeah, so it's the process now is trying to think, well, what could be good in this one, and be a nice mix of good, bad, unrepeatable. Um, I guess, but really, the first one threw the dice. I'd already written it, polished it, chucked it to you guys. You went, yeah, it's all right. So it's out there.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so out of the ones you've included in this book one, I guess what's your favorite dit and why?
Do you know what I think? And there's okay. If I as briefly as I can, if I say about which is my favourite, it's a different genre. The favourite different genre. The more serious I'd say is it's the Pain of Pomeroy. Absolutely, not because, but that place that still I say it still haunts me. So that's a powerful place. I do think, and it's only a think. I'm saying this out loud for all it is I need to go back there, and that's just my own headspace. And and the wife will listen to this going, well, went there for. Good point. I want to go back there at Christmas. Just I can erase that then. I think I spoke to a therapist about this. The second for the sort of more just everyday kind of marine stuff would be about Brass Monkeys. I kind of alluded to there about the snow holes and that lovely part of Norway. I went to Norway so many times at the other part of my career, sadly not towards the end. I did lots of skiing, teaching people how to live and survive in the Arctic. I absolutely love my time over there. So that one, and then the other one in terms of being funny, the one that makes me laugh the most actually is called My Name Is Helga, because I remember being in the. I know again, no spoilers if you haven't read it, but being in the car with the lads, just and being completely sober ish with the lads, and they're just three lads sat in the back doing what they were doing, and I can see them. I can see all three lads, and it just typifies life as a bootneck. It's just so bootneck, and I can't unsee it. And not only in the car, but then when we got out of town, and then seeing other mates pricking around a guy taking over the DJ stand in the nightclub and stuff like this, and a really good mate, Dom, again sent him the dip before I put it out. Just it's just so very bootneck, which is probably why I like it the most, because it just reminds me of just good times. No, weren't hurting anybody, just having a laugh.
Mhm.
So yeah, that one.
And obviously, not all of the dits are, as you say, during your time in the Corps. So there's obviously a fast food chain related one at the before you've joined. Anything on that one?
Yeah, I think if that Glenn M that's on the call is that man, that's the man that was there and he did it. It's like, I can still hear him fucking laughing as he was doing it. I can. Glenn is my oldest friend. He's just one of the nicest guys you'll absolutely ever meet. And we caught up for the first time in probably best part of 40 years. Best part of 40 years in London a couple of years ago. And it was just an absolute pleasure to see him. And to write a story about it was just brilliant. The whole process of McDonald's and what he did. And I can still see his fucking smart ass face outside dropping me in the shit. It was pure gold. And I was very Glenn. He's got one of the most contagious laughs I've ever known. So yeah, yeah. I can't think what other Glen M is. It's a thumbs up. That'll do. That's acknowledgement enough for me. My mum's on the call and she knows Glenn as well, so she'll love that.
Yeah. And your mum also features, I believe, wasn't it? She wrote the letter.
Ah, I just did it out of flipping. I just needed to include her. I didn't really care about putting my mum in, but sodder, whatever. But yes, yeah, the letter about. I mean that is just genuinely, let's call it 1.25 million. To write to somebody, anybody in the Middle East during the first Gulf War, and I was on course away from it all, and for it to land in the lap, it could have gone to anybody, one of 250,000 people, and it landed on the lap of somebody who I shared the same bed space in Commando Training Center, going through basic training. To land on his lap could have gone to anybody because it was literally a call out to go to anyone, and it went and landed on a mate, and he wrote back. And I think we've got a copy of that letter back to my mum from John Tooby. You couldn't write it, and more importantly, it's even weirder is that both John and my mum have got odd coloured eyes because they're both odd, obviously, strange as it is. But yes, she definitely features, and she is, yeah, she's awesome. I love my mum to bits. She she obviously raised me, and then the Marines kind of made me. So I always say that. So
Fair enough. Two different families as such. Yeah.
definitely,
So I guess on the flip side of the hilarity and the kind of leadership lessons, you've also included kind of your own advice at the end of each of the dits, and I guess what that reflects is that you've since these events have happened, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back at them, you've then kind of processed it in that way. Like, what would you say on that side of things?
yeah. I mean, and the reason why I did that, well, I just wrote the Dits, and I thought, well, this is great, but somebody can read this and probably never revisit it. Now, although there's an element of tongue in cheek to my toddy's tips at the end of each chapter or each dit, there is actual advice. So if people are looking for advice to a certain situation, which there may be of similar nature, the cat one probably never, maybe not even the recycled sex one, but to some of them, people will perhaps go to that and say, well, okay, if this guy who's a 22-year vet BJJ, black belt, world record holder, has done all this other stuff, has endured and gone through this process, then he's okay and he's knocking on. Um, then maybe I can. So that's why I did it, and that was kind of linked to reading Jocko's first book, and thinking I want people to be able to revisit it or go when they're feeling down to go back to a funny story just so they can smile as I do. I'm actually reading the book again from start to finish, which seems ridiculous because I know this sounds so very, I don't know what this sounds like, narcissistic or I don't know. But I read it and go, this is actually really decent. Oh shit, I read this. I go, I wrote this. That's actually all right. I don't mind. And that sounds ridiculous. I know it does. I sound like, oh, look at me, pat my own back. But actually, really enjoyed reading it. And I want people to do that, to go back to it and revisit and enjoy the good stuff, or maybe read the bad stuff and then go, no, actually, my life's not so bad, is it? Really, hoping that. Although there's nothing, I'm never going to go into the realms of war stories because when you compare stuff to that overt nature of the guys who've really genuinely suffered wholeheartedly, like doing. I spoke to a mate, Ads Leeson, and he's also a BJJ black belt. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, calling him on it. He doing 3 tours of Afghan back to back. I can't even imagine. I cannot imagine. And I am pleased. I look at all these super decorated guys. And I've got 4 gongs. 2 of them are shit house. Well, one long service in good conduct medal. That's it. I got away. I don't know how I got away with it. I just don't know. I did. I absolutely got away with it. I shouldn't. I shouldn't have it. You should give it back. But that's, I look at all these super decorated guys and I have such admiration. Such admiration. I was so lucky. I've seen guys with a lot less who must look even, look left and look further left and look at all these what I call the Kenny Everett medals, Rose, and that'll only refer to be only a few people are conscious of that becoming another age, but it's just incredible. So I wanted to keep it separate and be good, bad, and repeatable, as in go back to stories to help people process things with a genuine spin on what I learned from that, you know. And I won't bore the details because I go down a massive rabbit hole with that. But I think that's, for me, that was important to change just a book to read once and not return to. I wanted people to go back to it and then lighten themselves or lighten the load or whatever.
Yeah, and I guess because of by nature of the dits and how they're composed, you can literally dip in and out of it. It could one dip might take you 5, 10 minutes, others are a bit longer, etc. And that's quite nice. And as you say, you can go back and read one again, and it's very easy to find what you want to find. So um, something you touched upon earlier on, you mentioned obviously the kind of the charity work you'd done, with the journey across America. Obviously this book, there's a charitable side to that. Do you want to kind of touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea around simply making money from a book sale, and as as we junior authors, we're not J.K. Rowling. Would be nice, but we're not. But still, there's something that I think there's always an element to give if you can to be able to give back. And I've been a bit more than just stick it in. It's passive. It's passive income for them. Um, so for me to donate, 20% of my profits to charity, regardless of the amount that is, and I'd love it for it to be more, is important because certainly the charities have either helped me, and it certainly helped me last year when I was having a bit of a spell, but also moving forward, and also other people I know that they help is super important. I've always been, and some people would argue differently, because I've had fallouts with so many people over the years over different charitable things and events. But underlying all this and underpinning the very nature of what I want to do is just to help people. I don't give a shit. I've even to the point where I've drained my cup so very lowly, so very low, and some people on this call will know that it's affected my life, my marriage, my absolute health, and to the point where I've sacrificed a lot just because I wanted it to. I didn't care about anything else. I just got blinkered into making it work and it to be the absolute focus. But not everybody else would buy into that because they're a bit more sensible. They just wanted to focus on them being okay at the end of it, whereas I don't give a shit. I just wanted the Gumpathon, for example. I didn't care about anything or anybody else, which just meant monocular of myself. And I've learned from that to I just wanted to raise money, which we did. We raised £125,000 for 3 charities, and I'm incredibly proud of that. I wanted more, and then the roll around the clock, the BJJ world record, again $35,000 for an Australian suicide prevention charity. Huge undertaking, and again didn't care about what it did to me as a disabled guy with lots of issues with neck and whatever else, but I didn't care. I just wanted to make it happen so it helped people. That's generally all I care about. So that's why with this is an easy way to do it. I don't have to put myself at risk either by grappling for 24 hours. It's just be a nice steady stream for now till whenever, and I think with the other books as well, certainly the plan is to change the charities year on year, working with something like with mental health. Huge fan of those that can help with anybody with mental health. Too many people die from suicide. Too many people die. It's a cruel thing, and I think it's important. It's definitely important for me. I need to help people. So this is kind of my way, passively. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you are very generous. I think in terms of even reading what you've written, it's a very kind of honest appreciation of things, and yeah, you're sharing that some of that knowledge that you've gained and the kind of insight and as you say, also giving back from a charitable perspective. So what's not to like? Um, so you've touched on obviously the plan. You've got plenty of these stories to write still. So how long do readers need to wait for book two then?
I would. Oh, here we go. I would love to think that I could get it out for my birthday, so February. Just plug there, 21st, if anyone wants to treat me. So I'd like to think around about then. I mean, the way it's going, certainly, I'm over halfway through, or close enough to halfway through. So yeah, that's what I'd like to do. Yeah, and that keep that going. I think what I'm also going to do is to extend upon that and have not just my dits, but other people's dits. I've always started in my own head, at least, to grab a few people from, a whole range of communities, not just the military. I've got a good mate at Jits. He spins a good dit. Rick, he's a fireman, was a fireman, and he's got some crackers. That's
Mm.
absolute crackers. Same sort of lineage as I would follow. So big fan of that. A little bit obscure and a bit off the wall. So that's also in. Wife wants me to write some fictional books, which I could probably do. And I think they'll still be military oriented, but I want to focus on the things, the actuals, the non-fiction stuff first, and then see how that goes. But I say I've got at least 5 of my crap. Never mind anybody else's. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's ideas about, so to get as many out. I can get 2 books a year for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Well,
plan.
you could have a Jits Dits series. That could be there.
Yeah, I like it. I
There you
like
go.
it.
Have that one.
Yeah.
Um, right. Well, before we close off the recording and that side of things, is there anything else you kind of want to touch upon from the book or otherwise?
No, I mean those of you who have who've bought it. If this is obviously people outside of here who I can't see are on the call, but if those who've bought it, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. If only for the point we just spoken about, the money that will eventually go to charity, whatever that looks like, um, and also for just taking the time to do something, anything aside from people looking down at the screens just to read. It's definitely invigorated my want to read more. So I take a book. I've got 4 or 5 books sat by the bed. I generally come to bed and will watch something to. That's just got. I've got terrible tinnitus, and I struggle to hear anything, which is sometimes beneficial when I'm getting to me awake. But for me, it's just just a thank you for supporting me in this way and just believing in me when so very often that hasn't been the case. And I think I'm just grateful for that interaction and the way that this book has helped me reconnect with people. I had a mate from school, a guy called Andy Kirk, rang me the other day. I haven't spoken to him since I left school, and we started on a journey where I'm definitely going to connect with him before Christmas. I don't care how fuck I do it. I'm definitely connecting with him before Christmas. He's one of my best mates at school, and he just disappeared. And he kind of touched on the other day. So he lives not that far away, so we're going to catch up somewhere in between him and me, amongst other things. So for that, I'm grateful on all counts. And I think now we'll ask is if people do read it and they get to it and they come to write a review, be nice, because I'll find you. Um, and, just but just be honest. I don't mind honesty. I don't want shit reviews, of course, as well. But they just let me know. And if you don't think it's good, also let me know. But be nice.
Yeah,
um,
indeed.
yeah, that's it, mate. Really, that's all I got to say. Just thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. I mean, for those, as you've touched on, hopefully everyone here has bought the book, but it's Christmas is coming. So I'm sure there's plenty of other people that can benefit from Obi's experiences. So please, yeah, the book is exclusively available on Amazon. You should be able to search it now. We did have a technical issue on that side, but that's overcome. And it is available worldwide. So yeah, we've sold copies in Australia, America, and we'd like to keep growing that. So yeah. So thank you very much. I'm going to close the recording now, and then we'll turn to audience questions. But yeah, thank you very much, Obi. Thank you.
No, thanks, Ash.